Welcome to This Week in 2016 Presidential Polls, where we look past the horse race to the numbers that really matter. Here's the polling news that you need to know for the week ending June 19th. A couple of national polls and a gaggle of state polls came out in a week that was highlighted by the announcements of three marquee names. Donald Trump and Jeb Bush officially threw their hats into the ring this week, while Hillary Clinton held the first major event of her campaign. Despite all this hoopla, the real winner of the week was someone who made few headlines. But before we get to that, let's take a look at the newsmakers. Hillary Clinton continues to face questions about her conduct as Secretary of State. This appears to make her vulnerable among voters nationwide, who give her a 41% favorable to 44% unfavorable rating, and particularly in the 10 key swing states where her ratings are decidedly upside down at 38% favorable to 47% unfavorable. However, these controversies have not dented her standing among fellow Democrats. She enjoys a whopping 83% favorable rating among those voters who will ultimately decide the nomination. On the Republican side, Jeb Bush gets into the fray with ratings of just 26% favorable and 46% unfavorable from voters nationwide. His 43% to 30% rating among fellow Republicans is positive, but still relatively lukewarm when compared to how Clinton does among Democrats. Bush also does worse than Clinton in the swing states, earning a 25% to 49% rating there. Bush's negatives, though, are trumped by this week's other entry into the GOP field. A 57% majority of voters nationwide hold a negative view of the Donald, including half of Republicans. No other candidate in the race suffers a rating this low, especially from voters in their own party. While Clinton, Bush, and Trump hog the headlines, this week's polls pointed to increased strength for a different candidate. That's Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Now, Rubio is the only candidate in national polls to have a net positive rating, including the 31% favorable to 27% unfavorable numbers he gets in the Monmouth poll. About half of Republicans like him, and just 14% don't. Now, that's one of the best positive to negative ratios in the GOP field. And he holds his own in the crucial swing states, with an even 29% to 28% rating there. Importantly, while Rubio appears among the top 5 choices in all the national GOP horse race polls this week, when voters are given a second option, he actually moves up to the top 3. And state polls from Quinnipiac in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Florida also point to the fact that Rubio's stock has been rising over the past few weeks. In fact, this week's polls suggest that as the field gets winnowed down, many Republican voters may turn to the Florida senator as their preferred alternative. This is definitely a trend that bears watching. So those are the highlights and lowlights of this week in 2016 presidential polls. Until next time, I'm Patrick Murray from the Monmouth University Polling Institute.